is when you decide to become an Israeli citizen, right? And there are people who lead these groups of tons and tons of Americans that are making Aliyah and giving up everything and moving and all of that. So ask me some questions now, and we can talk, or just talk. You don't have to raise your hand. Yes?
We grew up together.
Yes.
Very differently, and I'm older, so I was very separate from the rest of the cousins. But and I knew that you took your Yiddishkeit and your Judaism seriously. I had no idea that you take it as seriously as you do. If I'm reading Amy's feelings as your feelings, and I found that really interesting. I mean, I know that you go to services, I know that you belong to a synagogue, but it never, it didn't hit me until I read the book. Is how educated you are in this, and how much it means to you, because I am the secular, the completely secular Jew who is completely, almost 100% assimilated, who holiday means what food are we eating. So it's interesting how there can be so many gradations of devotion and understanding even within a pretty tight family.
Yeah. But however, you know, just to like speak to that, and it's the same family, you weren't there a lot, I think, but we were going to Hebrew school. First of all, my main reason to want to go to Hebrew school is because I figured out in like, you know, 3rd or 4th grade that's where all the boys went after school. And none of the girls were going. And so I went. And then my mom worked for, what, 45 years, Stephen? 50 at the Jewish National Fund. That was her job.
But she started when she was 1.
She started when she was 1. Right? And where... but that was her job. She got out of high school. She got a job at the Jewish National Fund. She became an executive there. So there was that stuff around it. And when I wanted to go to Hebrew school, she gave somebody gave her like one of those books, and I started to teach myself the Aleph Bey, and it was fun, and I liked it. But you know, I have Stephen's making faces. I really loved it. I thought it was really interesting. But we had a weird thing that in my neighborhood in Queens, we all went, you know, Queens Boulevard, it was like a big, big boulevard. You didn't want your kids to cross Queens Boulevard alone. And all kids did everything on their own. When they were 8 or 9, they walked around. They weren't driven places and stuff like that. So we all went to the Young Israel of Sunnyside, mainly because it was on our side of the boulevard, and it was close. It happened to be Orthodox. But nobody, I don't know, nobody paid any attention to that. Anyway, I'm there. We had a very small kitchen, okay? We didn't have like a lot of room for stuff. And I'm there one day, and Rabbi there says, how many people here have 2 sets of dishes? So everybody raised up their hand, because they all had 2 sets, the good set and the everyday set, right? And we had 1 set. So I raised my hand, you know, and said, and it's like, you, Liba, star pupil, you don't, and there were so many cracks like that, I really had to leave. So I went to the Sunnyside Jewish Center, which was conservative, but the rabbi was actually Orthodox. So when it came time for me to be bat mitzvahed, and I got a lot of mileage writing this and my other books, in the Shiksa Syndrome story, and You Have to Kiss a Lot of Frogs, he wouldn't let me daven, he wouldn't let me chant the Haftorah. Now, I sang, and I was the only girl, and I was a show-off, and I wanted to do this, and he wouldn't let me do it on Saturday morning, and he wouldn't let me sing, and it was very, very, very disappointing to me, and I'm not over it yet. Rabbi Albert, but his name, Albert, that's where I got Amy Albert, because I thought it kind of transferred. So, but we then, our grandparents, American-born, and then also one Eastern European, they had all the holidays, and we went. And it wasn't even that they were so religious, but it was part of the Eastern European shtetl culture that came over. And I just was really a very good girl. I didn't rebel about anything until I was like 15 or 16. So we went and we did this, and that's what you did. So like the orthodontist said, don't chew gum with braces. I stopped chewing gum at 11. I have never chewed another piece. Rabbi says you're supposed to come every Saturday. I did it. I mean, I just did whatever you want to say, and it became a part of me, and it's really a part of who I am. But I was surprised to find out that it wasn't a part of the rest of the family. That was my shock, because we all sat at those tables, and we all went to those Passovers, and we all had the Hanukkah, and we all were getting together on Rosh Hashanah, and not Yom Kippur just because nobody was driving, just because it was a hard day. But we all sat at those tables, so in a way it was shocking to me. Even though I went to Hebrew school, I kind of thought, well, so I went to Hebrew school, like in part of Donna. Donna didn't go to Hebrew school. She got my college roommates. And, you know, it's the same part of you without going to Hebrew school and got bat mitzvahed like a year ago, right? But 10 years ago. Time flies. So you did do it when we were 13, after all.
That's right.
You did it when we were 15. You know, so, and we were in Binghamton, which, you know, was predominantly Jewish. So it was always my surprise to find out, to the extent that it did not stick with the other people as the other way. Ellen?
Have you heard got a response in New York from other women? Have they, you know, when you do these, like when you did Barnes Nobles or at the temple, have they responded or?
This is my first temple, actually, and I've done bookstores, and it's different. And and we talk a lot about the lipstick. There's a big product launch in this book because she's in consumer PR, and Rami, it's called Kiss Copiers is the product. And I got this real guy, Rami, who has a cosmetics company. I wrote all his products in. And then I had him create a lipstick called Chick's a Goddess lipstick that I wrote it in fictionally, and then he created the lipstick. And that was part of the mailing that I wanted to do to have it a more universal appeal. So we give lipstick giveaways, and Rami has come up. It's on my Facebook page, and he puts like the Chick's a Goddess lipstick, which is not my color. It's like nobody's color, okay? It's pink, it's your color. So people have shied away. Most of my information about talking about it in a significant way. The first one did, because there was a little bit. Actually, the first one we did, Barnes & Noble not. The first one, the women, it depends where they are in life. If they're with somebody that they're happy with, they're not. But like some of the interviewers I've had, it was very interesting. Also, this Jewish Book World reporter, she said to me, I started your book at 10 at night. I finished it at 5:30 in the morning. I loved it. She said, but in the end, I felt a little hopeless. I felt like it was a little depressing, like I'm not going to find that kind of Jewish guy. I don't know that I will. You know, either, to be honest. I don't feel so bad about it, but honestly, out of all the Jewish men I've dated, which are tons and tons, most of them, you know, had very little connection, and it was very difficult, and couldn't even get them to come to, like, Rosh Hashanah for an hour. The only person that I ever dated that I went to synagogue with was Terry's brother, you know.
Question that also has a comment. Number one is that I hope you don't get over the fact that the rabbi didn't allow you to pray on Shabbat morning, because maybe Judaism would be a bit more relevant to a lot of people if people wouldn't get over it. Mm-hmm. But that said, how much of a number do you think that did on the men that you're talking about? In other words, if the message that I get from early on in school is that you don't count, why on earth would I want to date you?
That's very interesting. See, I told you how brilliant he is. That's very interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought about that in that way. But I will tell you something I went through that every week, and it was a joke, but it was like not a funny joke. And I wrote this again in frogs, but I will tell you now. The Rabbi Albert came in to the thing, and they have at the end of Shabbat services all these prayers where you conclude the services. And this rabbi actually played guitar, which was a big deal in Sunnyside, Queens, you know, like around circa 1970, you know, that he played guitar. And we had these, you know, what were they called? The cantatas we sang. It was just really, it was very joyful. It was wonderful. But it was all the old school Ashkenazi. And they would split up the concluding prayers into like eight things. And they would always come in and ask somebody in Hebrew school who's going to do like the first part of Aaron's Miros, who's going to lead a Don Olam, who's going to lead this part, who's going to lead that. I was dying to lead the prayer. I was dying to lead the prayer. And he would come in